Melissa Cheers. Essa mulher é foda. A Melissa é fundadora do Centro de Hipnose Integrativa em Nova York e é considerada por muitos como a maior terapeuta do mundo. Ela já ganhou vários prêmios aí, né? Tanto pela prática dela, como também pelos livros dela, que são muito bons. A Melissa é minha referência de hipnoterapia e nesse vídeo, nesse bate-papo, ela comenta sobre hipnose para criança, hipnoterapia para crianças, como que ela faz, né? Então aproveita o vídeo aí, aproveita os conhecimentos da rainha Melissa.
We're talking here area about children care. How integrative hypnosis can work with this kind of people, this special kind of
These kind of people that are small.
Yeah,
These kind of people that are small and short and kind of annoying.
Yeah,
Those kind of people. Kids. A lot of kids, all ages. And one of the biggest things that I think is vital for any practitioner working with kids is to offer them power, right? So integrative hypnosis, as you know, after 4 days of hanging out, is all about arming my client to change themselves. So with kids, it's really about teaching them that they have the power. They have the power to change. They have the power to change their emotions, to be able to feel safe, to express their emotions. I teach kids different ways of talking about emotions and describing them and drawing them and coloring them and different ways of shifting out of them. And we call them tricks, magic tricks, or we call them superpowers. And for me, the main thing that I do is I make sure the kid, number one, knows I'm on their side, right? So parents come in and they say, I want you to fix my kid.
Yeah.
And I say,
sometimes the problem is with the parents.
More than sometimes. Many times the problem is with the parent. And so oftentimes I'll even suggest to the parents that they have a session with me. And sometimes they have a session with me and they never need to bring me their kid because the problem was them. So I am always listening for the dynamic. And so the kid needs to know that I'm there for them, that I get why their parent wants to bring them. And I always say, I know what your mom thinks you should do, but I'm here for you. And if I had a magic wand, and I have 2 or 3 magic wands in my office.
Do you have this?
See.
Nice.
Because I've created some Harry Potter spells. So, you know, I kind of tap into the kid's desire to be magical, because ultimately, once again, it comes back to powerlessness.
But how old is this child? Since
So I see kids from ages 5 to 95. You know, there's that wounded child in all of us, and sometimes, you know, all of my tricks and techniques that are designed for children are the very same tricks and techniques that I use with grown-ups. So you know, with kids, if you take all that you've learned from me these 4 days, almost all of it applies to children. Almost all of it. See the meta pattern, the self-directed neuroplasticity frame, arming kids to change their own brain, affect regulation tools, which just means giving kids the power and the ability to change their emotions, to own them, to change them, to get out of anxiety, to put on a superhero cloak and go into the situations that they couldn't go into before. Now, powerlessness is one of the things that in research study after research study with adults, the heart disease, the immune dysfunction that comes from people who are not in a position of power but work for someone else. And one of the things about not being in control of your own life when you work for someone is your heart rate, your heart disease goes up, stroke goes up, diabetes goes up. So if you think about how we've measured that with adults and how damaging that feeling of powerlessness is, now imagine amplifying it by 1,000 times, because at least the adult gets to choose what they want for breakfast. They get to choose where they go. They get to choose who they connect with, what they do every day. But if you're a child, you make none of those decisions. And ultimately that puts children in a position where the only way that they have control is to act out, is to do that thing that is getting them in trouble. Because sometimes too, it is the only way to get the parents' total attention. Because what they have discovered in research is that negative attention is better than no attention. So if the parent is on their cell phone, and the kid says, and the parent finally puts the fucking cell phone down and gives the kid a direct attention, even if it's negative, it's something. And so a lot of it is education for the parent and bonding with the kid to give them some power in their life, to give them the ability to manage the biggest things in their life, which is their emotions.
A lot of times the parents put the responsibility to education in YouTube, in videos, and not directly to the kids.
I love when you said that you are always on the kid's side.
Always.
Because if they don't want to change, if they are not like feeling bad about that, parts are to tell the children, the kid, he or she wants to change.
See, so not only that, kids need to know that they have someone, and in the time when the parent is taking them to get help, a lot of times the kids don't feel that they have the parent, because the parent is already taking that and giving it to someone else, or the conflict is with the parent. I listen to parents talk about their kids when their kids are sitting right there. And they talk about these kids in a way that I would never want them to talk about anyone, let alone someone they love. And I point it out. And I say it right in front of the kid.
And what do you do when the kid does not recognize the emotions? When we talk about fear, when we talk about anxiety, if the children they don't know what is anxiety, what is fear.
So they don't have to label it. They don't have to know the name of the emotion. And oftentimes the initial session with a kid will be something that the kid just sits there and they don't know what to expect. They don't know who I am. So sometimes I break the ice by doing the change work on the parent. I say to the parent, can I show you a trick? Can I show you how to take fear? I speak to the parents beforehand, so I have some idea. So I can say to the parent, I have a trick that stops fear. You want to learn it? And then I look at the kid and I say, you don't have to. Let me show mommy. And maybe when you go home, mommy can show you.
Oh, nice.
So sometimes that's the trick. Sometimes it's, sometimes I sit there, if the parent is really annoying to me, I will ask the parent to leave, and the kid sits down. And I have a bunch of stuff in my office, sometimes a hypnotic spiral. And I say, have you ever seen this? Sometimes we just play. Sometimes I let the kid get up and see what they want to touch, what they want to talk about. Sometimes I just tell stories. Sometimes I say...
Do you use puppets?
I have in the past, not so much anymore. New York children are a little skeptical. Yeah. They know that already. They think, all right, lady. Like even a 6-year-old is going to be like. What's funny?
Don't try to fool me. I know your voice.
So I would rather talk up to a kid over their head than talk down to a kid.
Instead of patronizing them.
right?
See, so I run the risk of them not understanding me, but at least I don't run the risk of me patronizing them. You know, so I'll be like, Mommy thinks that you don't, you know, that you don't know how to do da 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 da. I think you might.
It's also when you give the kid the power to do the change.
Yes,
It's
yeah.
it's her all
See.
power.
And it's interesting too, Melissa, because sometimes, as far as I have observed, sometimes the parents are the problem because they fight in front of the children all the time,
There's-
and they expect the children to have a different behavior.
That's
And
it.
that's impossible because they're just copying. And so when the child is aggressive at school, when they're bullying at school, the problem is usually the parents. You're just
Almost always.
replicating
Almost
a
always.
behavior.
And it doesn't even have to be that blatant. It's the subtle things that kids never miss.
That's true.
And how can you? You're right. How can you tell kids not to talk back when that's all they see? It's all they know. They're learning from us unconsciously all the time.
And especially from the most important role models.
See?
Yeah, and the children can absorb more things than an adult. They can learn faster.
Well, they can learn faster. Their brains are wiring at such a rate that is crazy. And the truth is, they're wide open. They're wide open. They don't have that guarded, real, full-on critical faculty that is in place. Everything gets in. Now, earlier when somebody asked about their kid, and they said my kid is 4 or 5, doing this little tick, doing this compulsive behavior, and I said, please leave it alone. Because kids will go through these phases always.
Everybody does.
Everybody does.
Everybody.
But what we do nowadays is we isolate it, we label it as a problem. We then try to fix it because we're trying to be good parents. We're afraid to not pay attention to these things. And unfortunately, then the kid becomes a patient. Once the kid becomes a patient, he self-identifies as someone who has something wrong, rather than a kid that has all of these different phases they go to. So I often tell that to parents. I say, look, please trust me on this. Leave it alone. And if in 6 months is still a problem, then bring them in.
Because when you say to the kid, she or he has a problem, it's a suggestion.
See?
Just
Then
a
they become-
suggestion
Yeah,
by the
and then-
parents. The most of the time.
Yeah, and it's a
Exactly.
constant attention
Yeah.
to it. And now you see the kid, like I said, bad attention is better than no attention. Now, if every time the kid sucks the thumb, bites, acts out, they have full attention. They've got a parent who's, worried about them, trying to fix them, even yelling at them for it. They're the focus of attention. And so there's more payoff to doing the thing than stopping the thing. So there's a lot involved.
just
But
begins.
just to answer your question, directly, I mean, the first thing we do is give kids power. I teach kids to go into self-hypnosis. I teach kids to make movies they want to star
In
in.
other words, you can do direct suggestion. It's work too.
Absolutely.
It works very
Yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. See.
So